What's your price? How much would it take for you to become a mouthpiece for your country's sworn enemies? Well, for two prominent YouTubers, we found the answer, and it is staggering that the DOJ has in fact busted these two YouTubers for taking huge amounts of cash to parrot Kremlin talking points. They really are giving a whole new meaning to the term YouTube sellout. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, this is an absolutely unhinged story that a series of influencers that generally, I mean, Wired is calling them right-wing. They are definitely right of center, but they're kind of all over the place. The important thing is they were an influencer network that were bribed by a Russian shell company to promote and expand Russian disinformation, right? In this indictment that was unsealed yesterday, employees of Russia's state media company, RT, were actually pushed this money through these shell companies and contracted two major, actually a whole series of right-wing influencers, the largest of which was Tim Pool, who's a libertarian right-ish person, and Rubin of the Rubin Report. I think it's Rick Rubin. The point is that these guys were massive. You also had Lauren Southern, Dave Rubin, excuse me, as well as Benny Johnson. These influencers all took huge sums of money to promote Tenet Media. This was a front for RT, the Russian today, the Russian state media. Now, I want to point out an important detail is that according to the DOJ, these influencers were actually duped by Tenet Media, who misrepresented who they were, and that they are victims. But we're going to talk a little bit about the real business of being a YouTuber and why these guys should have absolutely knew better and probably did. Right? So this is the official press release from the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice actually does not name these individuals because, again, they are, the DOJ is treating them as victims. But it does point out that Russia's RT, state-controlled media outlet, pushed $10 million to get these commentators to parrot pro-Kremlin talking points and to promote their own brand, which was initially called Viewpoint, later Tenet Media. Essentially, these two RT employees who were charged co-opted online commentators by funneling them nearly $10 million to pump pro-Russian propaganda and disinformation across social media to U.S. audiences. Right? Covert attempts to sow discord is what they're describing. Then trick Americans into unwittingly consuming foreign propaganda is an attack on our democracy, according to FBI Director Christopher Wray. And the Russian government, of course, has been trying to do this for years and is increasingly looking successful, right? And over the last about 18 to 24 months, RT has pushed their $10 million funds through this Tennessee-based online content creation company, which we now have identified as Tenet Media, to publish English language videos on all sorts of social media channels like TikTok, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And the company actually contracted over 2,000 videos, garnering 16 million views on YouTube alone. But what's more dangerous is how closely related these commentators are to the mainstream political universe. That's what should scare you, because if this is happening for two of our commentators, two prominent commentators, you don't know who else could be shilling for someone else. So let's talk about it. We actually have the whole indictment here, which we're going to break down. Now, we are going to talk about how they got what they in the indictment call Commentator 1 and Commentator 2. These are the two people who the investigation really focused on. They're the two largest individuals who got caught into this kind of Russian web. Again, caught is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this statement. Essentially, this Tenet Media pretended to be funded by a completely made-up billionaire named Edward Gregorian, right? And Edward Gregorian is, of course, a complete fabrication, just someone who these individuals made up, right? But Tenet Media itself is actually run by two other prominent content creators. Lauren Chen, who is also not American. She's a Canadian commentator who has made the rounds along right-wing media sources like Blaze TV and Turning Point USA. She's also run opinion pieces on RT. And she has prominently been super pro-Putin, as you can see, literally fawning over Putin, saying that he gave a 2-hour dissertation on Russia's history and its place on the world stage. And we reviewed this interview. This is closer to unhinged rambling than a 2-hour dissertation. Even Tucker Carlson acknowledged that it went absolutely nowhere. And then she says, Biden could not finish a cohesive sentence in a 5-minute carefully choreographed setting. Well, dunking on Biden is comically easy. But again, that doesn't mean you have to, strain your shoulder. Never mind. That doesn't mean you have to provide fawning praise to Vladimir Putin, right? Now, Tenet Media, the indictment, rather, talks about Commentator 1 and Commentator 2. Commentator 1 has 2.4 million subscribers on YouTube, and Commentator 2 has 1.3 million YouTube subscribers. And I want to point out, guys, that 1.37 million is how many Tim Pool has, and the Rubin Report, 2.5. And these people are already linked to Tenet Media. And as you can see, neither one has said anything about being indicted as Russian shills, which is absolutely hilarious. But I also wanted to say, if you want to hit subscribe, that makes a difference. That makes a tremendous difference for me. It really tells the YouTube algorithm that, again, I'm one of the honest commentators doing the job the right way. No fake views, no fake subscribers, not paid by any government. So I would appreciate it if you can hit that button. It really makes a difference. Okay. So what did they reach out? Well, Lauren Chen and her hubby reached out to Dave Rubin and Tim Pool saying, we want you to produce videos using your own names and leveraging their existing audiences for license and publication with Tenet Media. And of course, here's what's interesting. Here's how these guys got duped, depending on your perspective. Right? Now, these guys falsely portrayed to Pool and Rubin that Tenet Media was a private entity, a US-based company sponsored by an investor named Edward Gregorian. Right? Edward Gregorian, someone they just made up, doesn't exist. During contract negotiations, for example, Commentator 1, and this is interesting too, because we get to actually see kind of these guys, again, who purport to be extremely savvy consumers of the news, finding secret information, secret realities that lay people don't see, right? Commentator 1, 2.4 million, that's Rubin, right? Rubin requested some kind of profile or article on Edward Gregorian to confirm he was the real dude and he wasn't associating with someone who was like a criminal or going to ruin his reputation or someone who didn't even exist, right? And of course, they made up a one-page profile of fictional Edward Gregorian and falsely describing this made-up person as an accomplished financial professional. From Brussels and France. Now, who is the director of private banking division and wealth management. I want to point this out. Billionaires are never the director. They don't work for anyone else, right? Maybe Jamie Dimon's a billionaire and he works for JP Morgan. But billionaires own things, okay? So they are not the director of Dick. They're the founder of things, okay? Right? And after getting this incredibly credible one-page profile verifying nothing, Rubin said, yeah, I'm happy to produce 130 videos for Tenet Media. Now, talks a lot about these influence operations, but what I thought was more interesting is, again, let's see if we can we scroll down and we can find some of the story here. The real interesting part is how they did it, right? So, Lauren Chen actually got just $8,000 a month, just $90,000 a year, right? To literally sell out her country. Well, not her country. Her country's Canada. To sell out our country. But commentator 1 and commentator 2, they said, we'll also give you a percentage of whatever deal you ink with these commentators. So, commentator 1, commentator 2 were hit up by Lauren Chen to say, hey, Edward Gregorian, enigmatic billionaire, wants to sponsor you. Well, so let's see, we find it right. She gets paid her $8,000 for her consulting services through a shell company that doesn't even exist, right? And then, most importantly, she starts to reach out. And here's where things get really unhinged, right? So commentator 1, so Lauren Chen says, listen, there's absolutely no way employing these two is going to be even remotely profitable at the level they want, right? Shout out, first off, Ruben, he said he needed $5 million a year to be interested. And Tim Pool said it would take $100,000 per weekly episode to be worth his while. Right? Now, here's where I start to get suspicious. Founder 1 and Founder 2, correctly, Chen identifies there's no way these guys are going to be worth it. Right? It's going to absolutely be a total money sink. But commentator 2, Tim Pool, to his credit, was actually like, I want to talk to Edward Gregorian. I want to talk to this person to verify that they're a real person, right? And they did it. They had an actor play Edward Gregorian, and Tim Pool, right, was like, Edward Gregorian, call my cell phone. And of course, the actor then said, I'll do it over WhatsApp or Zoom, which is not weird. If you're in Brussels, that would not be weird at all, right? And commentator 2, of course, whatever happened in this conversation, in this call, they said, hey, I like it. I'm in. So again, commentator 2, Tim Pool, still though said he wanted to know more about the company and who he's going to be working with, right? And they said, don't worry, as we finalize the deal, we're all going to get together. We're all going to shake hands and do this thing, right? And of course, Ruben also said, who's this Gregorian guy? Is there a press release, videos, right? We talked about the fact they sent him a random one-page interview, a hyperlink to a LinkedIn page. So you see how this is really, really just thin stuff. Now, here's what I want to point out. This is what they sent him, by the way. Look at this. Does this look real? This is just a guy on a plane. They say he's deeply invested in business. Business. First off, a private billionaire does not have a one-pager. Again, a billionaire doesn't need to sell themselves. Their existence sells themselves. Right? And of course, a quick call to the bank he purportedly worked for would say, dude, this dude has never been employed by us and doesn't exist. Right? Nor do any Google searches for name of bank Edward Gregorian yield any results. So a casual look, right, would totally indicate this, including the fact that many of Gregorian's reps didn't spell his name right in multiple emails. One of them actually one of the actors signed the email as Edward Gregorian rather than as his assistant. And they said, it was just a forwarded email. So again, you see that these guys really didn't want to know more, right? So here's the thing. Let's talk about why I'm kind of judgmental of these guys. But before we do that, I want to mention the fact, first off, I've been approached, by the way, guys, by both the Russian and Ukrainian government or various wings, and I just delete those emails. I don't have anything to say to them. Because, one, I don't have to register as a foreign agent, but more importantly, nobody gets to tell me what to say. I spent 7 years in the Department of Homeland Security, right? Where I was subject to all these rules, and everybody and their brother told me exactly what I could say, and any report of my investigations were governed by everybody and their brother. And I said, no, dude, I'm going to do it my way. And that's why you guys trust me. But that means that you see, I don't get that many sponsorship deals, right? I cover the combat, but that's okay. I have you, the audience, sponsoring me. That's over on combatvetnews.com, right? Twice a week, I drop uncensored combat footage. We do a deep dive analysis. We just watched the last 2 videos have shown like massive leaps forward in Ukrainian drone tech. They're doing stuff with drones that is like something out of science fiction. So if you want those uncensored videos, and they're real combat frontline videos, we do the deep dive analysis, tactics, locations, all of it. Any one of those tiers is going to get you access to those. If you want to get the exclusive Q&As, that's Lieutenant tier and above. And if you really want to be a supporter of this channel, you really appreciate me, and really want to make sure I stay independent, the Colonel tier is the way to go. So check it out. Link is in the description. And of course, if you haven't bought your Strike Gum, company that I own, no Russian shell here, Labor Day sale going on. It ends today, so get it. Promo code Labor Day 24. In fact, that same promo code works over here too. It'll be all the links in the description, but do check it out. Do support me, because again, I don't have a government bankrolling me. But here's what I do know. First off, the amount these guys got paid, right, is that Tim Pool got his $100,000 per week, $400,000 a month, which works out to, what's that? $400,000 a month is $5 million a year. $5 million a year. And Ruben also got his $5 million a year. Now, here's what I want to point out. Tim Pool, want to look at his videos. I know the finances behind this. Tim Pool has a lot of subscribers. Don't get it twisted. But you can see, and dude's a content machine, putting out videos every day. I put out 2 videos a day, no big deal. But you see his views. His views here, his average views, by the way, is the views of my worst videos. Right? He rarely breaks 20K, and it hardly ever breaks 100K. But you got to ask yourself, how does someone like Tim Pool have a fancy studio? He has a production team. Look at this. This guy's got a really good setup. Do you ever ask yourself, why? How does that happen? Right? You can see he's got this really slick setup. He's got great editors. He's got a whole team that work for and with him. And the reality is that to have this kind of setup and make and get 19,000 views is so tiny. To give you an idea about, you can let's be generous. Let's say Tim is a master of AdSense, and this dude, this is Ruben's report here. So let's say Tim is a master of AdSense, and you get $5 for every 1,000 views. So that means he's making that in AdSense made $95, guys. Don't get me wrong, $95 a day is a nice side hustle, but you see, I get, 5 times those views? Maybe more. And I do this in my office, right? And yeah, he has his little Timcast, and he's got some other stuff, but he doesn't have that many sponsors. And I can tell you that if someone offers you $100,000 an episode, that is something in the magnitude of around 50 to 100 times what a typical sponsorship deal gets. And that's if you're at 100K a video. If you're at 19K a video, I'll tell you this. I'll show you this, okay? Again, we're using averages. Average right now, $20 per 1,000 views. A sponsor for a typical Tim Pool video would get him $380. And again, that's a full-time YouTube salary for sure. But it is so far below $100,000 an episode. That's not $100,000 a year, guys. Tim's unless he's got some secret revenue stream that I don't know about, which he does, he literally does, there's no way he is grossing $100K a year. Now remember, guys, he's got to pay rent on his studio. He's got to pay the electric bill. He's got to pay taxes. Dude, taxes kick your ass, okay? And he's got to pay his staff. He has an editor. That's a full-time job. He's got a thumbnail dude. Full-time job. He's got media, AV people. He's almost certainly has a rep who's going to take a 15 to 20% cut of every deal. So do you see how quickly even that limited amount of money just vanishes, right? And again, the fact that Tim Pool is running this off so few views should tell you everything you need to know about him. And this is why I sit in judgment on him. And Ruben has the same problem. Again, here's a dude, Ruben puts out content. Look at him. He's dropping something every single hour. And he does good, right? You can see here. Like, here's a 600,000 view video. So Ruben punches a lot harder, which is interesting. Because, again, this dude and Tim Pool asked for the same amount of money, given that nobody watches Tim and everybody watches, and people seem to love the Ruben Report. So, what I think, this is somebody who probably makes closer to that actual, I don't know if he's making $5 million a year, right? Again, it depends. Does he have an editor? How much does his editor take? How much does his manager take? How much does all this stuff take, right? How much is he making from these shorts that he's pumping out, right? Does he have sponsors? How good are the sponsors? But I can tell you that the odds that he's selling merch and member exclusive stuff on locals, I'm a skeptic. I'm a skeptic that he's making even $1 million a year here. Definitely not profiting $1 million a year. He might be grossing $1 million, right? And I love the comments here. Is this where we meet for the instructions from the Kremlin? What are they uniting around? The Kremlin, as we now know. Hey, Dave, how many Russian rubles do you want for your treason? Rise and downfall of a Russian asset in Russia, propaganda spreads you. Traitor to our country, traitor, 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 sponsored by Putin, grifting traitor. Translate to English. By the way, it's the same in English. A traitor, grifter. Dave's pronouns are comrade, comrade. Yeah. I heard your answer. So, again, guys, this is something, and here's why I'm skeptical, right? Here's where the skepticism comes from. They should know better. Bottom line. Right? If someone approached me and is like, we want to offer you $100,000 a week to do this job, $5 million a year, I would understand that is so far beyond what I as an influencer can command that there is a string. You are giving up something, right? And they all knew it. They knew there was something fishy about Edward Gregorian, about this company, about all of it. Something was smelled off. That's why they all wanted to know who they were working for, who wanted to employ them. And the fact is, they all they did was just enough to know that they, what's called cover your ass. They said, listen, sure, yeah, you look real, fine, sure, got it. They knew there was something weird happening. Because again, based on the current market, and I can go into my agency's Discord, my reps Discord, they rep a bunch of creators and say, what's the going rate? I can tell you, it's between $10 and $25 per 1,000 views. So a typical sponsorship for Tim Pool would be about $500. And so someone's coming in and saying, we'll give you $100K an episode. There's a reason. Imagine you're a teacher. Somebody knocks on your door and says, listen, I want you to teach somebody. It's going to pay you 10 times what you make as a teacher. You make 40 grand. I'm going to pay you 400. Your first thought is, what's the catch? And what 99% of us would do is walk away because we'd say, this is unrealistic. This is dumb. This is a scam. But these guys didn't. They saw dollar signs, and guess what? They knew. They knew. A lot of them had already been cozy with RT, right? A lot of them were cozy with RT. They already loved all of these pro-Russian shills. Just absolutely, just embarrassing. And you can see Tim Pool is in full coat mode here. Salva Ukraini, fuck off, buddy. He says, I've been contacted by the FBI as a potential victim of a crime. Bro, you got $5 million. You're not the victim. Right? That's what his lawyer says. Then look, just before that, he said, I remember back when they said I was funded by the CIA. Then it was right-wingers. Now it's the Russians. Tomorrow it will be, I don't know, like Poland or something. So he goes from 19 hours ago, he was saying, this is bullshit. This has never happened, to I have absolutely been a victim of the Russian scam, but excuse me, by Russians. I'm absolutely paid by the Russians. And now he says, oh, I love Ukraine. Listen, Putin also says he loves Ukraine. Putin's trying to free Ukraine from Ukrainians. Okay? Anyway, guys, this is all I had for now. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Again, I'll tell you, I'm not for sale. I don't know what to tell you. The whole point, the entire reason I do this is because I was tired of the government telling me what to do and say. Not that I have like hot takes. I'm not like, oh, the government's putting fucking mind control devices in your water. But literally, government wouldn't let me use the word lie. Like, oh, government, you know, when an official swears an oath and then says something is happening that isn't happening, that's called lying. And the government's like, you can't say that. I'm like, prove it. Prove that I can't say it. So I'm not for sale. Not for any government. Nobody. No corporation. You want to sponsor me? That's fine. You don't get to pick the video topic. You don't get to alter the video topic in any way. That's it. That's how I operate. Thank you, guys. And a huge thank you to the Colonel and Lieutenant tier members of CombatVetNews.com sustaining me in this operation. Really. You guys all are. Especially Bill Collier, Robin Colburn, Gaius Marning, Eugenia Cuesta, Chris Gorsuch, Francis Sicarius, AL90, all the Lieutenant tier members. I really could not do this without you guys. You guys are carrying the torch of freedom. Of a true American. Nothing Russian here. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.